How do you start something like this? Guten Abend, gamers. Welcome. Now, I'm breaking down DMC 5. Again. But this time, I promise, it'll be a bit different. So, I had 3 scripts originally planned. But the thing is, the scripts kept running into each other, so to speak. So I keep on talking about things, and then I had to mention it in another video to, like, mention it in another script. It was really whacked. So I asked some people for their advice, and everybody pretty much just said, just put it all in one video. So here it is. I'm sorry if it makes very little sense. But it's okay, I guess. Point is, this is my first time making a video like this. To be honest, I'm quite scared of the reception and how it's going to turn out. Especially this video, in terms of editing. Unlike all the other videos, I at least see a consistent vision for how it's going to probably be once capturing and editing and getting all the footage together, but for this one, I honestly don't know. Now, there are some things that I'm going to say in this video that may be a bit controversial, and if you do, please come to my Discord, challenge me. I mean challenge me. Please, I love debates, and I would love to spam you, walls upon walls of text of stuff, because I have nothing better to do in my life. And let's face it, neither do you. And of course, DMC5's story is known for a lot of different things. Some for being absolutely hated among certain people, and some really love the story, think that it's really deep and complex, borderline the same type of story that we've seen from DMC3. I want to see if either one of these are true. How do you start something like this? You started like this.
You should not underestimate this demon. After all, it was he who took your right arm.
Oh, Jesus, be careful. Yeah, no shit, silly. I mean, you are fragile at the moment. Wouldn't take much to wipe you out in a sticky situation. I'm just saying that running away is okay. It's always okay to run away. You can have that.
He who desires but acts not breeds pestilence.
V. No family, no problem. Okay, he can remember his brother clearly and perfectly come up with a plan to get Urizen without lifting a finger, more or less, and feel bad for his past actions. Well, that one's up in the air. But he seems to be able to have a basic brain function, right? So how on earth can he not figure out that Nero, that can easily hold the Yamato in his arm, and that can taunt enemies just like Dante, is his son until the very end? The reason it irks me so much is that most of the dialogue they share are either plot things or, "Who are you, V? Hee hee, I'm not telling you." And that's not bad if we knew very little about him, but wait a second, I know exactly who he is, so it makes their interactions boring and wasted. But due to this missed opportunity, it could have added more of an impact to that ending. Like, instead of being mystery man for every 3 seconds, he can actually be a mentor. Or wait, hold on. Wait for it. a father figure. This could easily open up possible ways for his and Nero's character development and relationship. Urizen, strong and stupid. Boy, isn't it convenient that one of the most powerful villains in all of DMC's current history can't kill Dante or Nero, no matter how vulnerable they are? Example, why couldn't Urizen kill Dante right after dealing with Nero? Oh yeah, he somehow bounces off of his shield. What? This just happens? This just happens and it's never even explained? What? Even though this never happens again. Okay, so Urizen is having a very unlucky day, because every time he tries to kill them, they conveniently help each other. So, I don't know, separate them by going after them one at a time, then bam, problem solved. Can you just move out of the chair for once? Oh wait, you can, so you don't have an excuse. But for the sake of argument, let's just say he has a good excuse. Like he needs the chair to keep him alive or something stupid like that. Why can't he just send his demons, or just demons, after him? Which, to be fair, there are some, like Cavalier Angelo and Artemis, kind of, but she was just trying to protect the Q plant, and no, I'm not calling it by its real name, it's dumb. Also, isn't it convenient that Demon Vergil doesn't remember Dante or Nero, which happen to be the only ones that can stop him? And before you even try the "but Mundus did the same thing" argument, know that there's a big difference between the two. First of all, most of the enemies didn't know that he was the son of Sparta, and two, he already had a spy on him, Trish, and his own brother, Vergil, against him. Footnote, another thing that makes them different is how Dante slowly works his way up to Mundus, until the last level, while on the other hand, Nero and Dante get to him on the prologue. So make of that what you will. And for brownie points, Mundus from the reboot also has a better reason to not take out our hero immediately than Vergil. Well, yes, he gets pissed off that he takes out his succubus, but after he waits for Dante to go after Bob, that way he can ambush his headquarters and taking a hostage and killing multiple people that work for their little anti-rebellious society, whatever. The only thing that he wasn't expecting was them playing by their own game and taking his child, so yeah. Now, granted, both of them have their flaws, but that's miles and miles and miles ahead of Urizen, and just sitting on a chair for about a month doing jack shit. V and Urizen are only biologically different. So if you've watched any, and I mean any, DMC3 and or DMC3 Vergil breakdown videos, you know that Vergil dislikes his human side and embraces his demon side instead. But sadly, DMC5 doesn't fully understand this. When DMC3 was talking about demon and human, it didn't literally mean demon and human. The best way I can put it is that they're a broken family, with a mother and a father being very different as to what they represent. The father being the strong and powerful and compassionless, while the mother being pure, powerless, and overflowing with compassion. Dante embraces his mother's side, while Vergil embraces his father's. This can have quite an effect on one or both parents dies, or when the parents separate. In fact, the way it's handled is nothing less than— oh, wait. And I know what some of you are going to say. You fucking idiots, Sparta sacrificed himself for humans, and loving Eva, and enough even have two twins, and isn't that compassionate? Yeah, DMC3 isn't great when it comes to its themes and story. Not saying that to forgive its mistakes, I'm just saying that DMC3's themes are trying to do, not about the quality of how it does it. Back to what I was saying. DMC3, demon and human in the context of Dante and Vergil, and even Lady's story to an extent, is a metaphor. So why did I just cover all that? My poorly informed friend. In DMC5, obviously, Vergil separates his demon side and his human side. Now this would be the perfect time to distinguish between the two. But that's the problem. There isn't a difference. So what are they motivated by? Well, Urizen wants power, and V wants himself back together, after which to gain power. V going as far as to say that that's something they share. So,
I need power. More power.
I know. We are one and the same, you and I. Yet we are connected by that one feeling.
So let's try character traits. Urizen is very calm, controlled, and doesn't seem to have much of a sense of humor, while V is the opposite. Calm, controlled, and doesn't seem to have much of a sense of humor. The only thing that I can find that's different between the two is that V will taunt enemies and Urizen won't, but those aren't opposites. I'm sorry, but the words that come to mind at this current moment is bad, poorly planned, and to be honest, a bit disappointing. DMC3 and DMC5 Vergil are basically the same. Before I jump head into this, for those that don't know, I'm referring to how DMC5's ending doesn't take into account all the previous and past adventures, which leads to Dante being the same Dante from DMC3. Well, not exactly, because Dante in DMC3 has much more childish energy than Dante in DMC5, and Dante has much more greediness to him in 5, but they both still want to kill their brother. Even though Dante in DMC5 has experienced life events that run counterintuitive to that, the idea of, lol, I'm gonna kill my brother mentality. Same with Vergil, which, trust me, I'll get to that later. So I'll double down on that. If you're going to go through the trouble of separating Vergil into two, give me a reason why. I understand you want to try and make it different from DMC3, which by all means I'm all for, but that needs to be done by having him actually change, whether through actions, change of mind, etc. And if you do think he changed, do you think it was as V or as Vergil? Probably as Vergil, right? So I went through all that to get to another point, this point. Why couldn't it have been Vergil at the beginning to end instead of V and then Vergil only at the very end? Not saying V can't have any empathy, then make his change as Vergil. I'm saying V can't pretend to change or actually change depending on who you're talking to, and then going back to DMC3 Vergil right after. But if you still have a few interjections, I'll address them right now. Oh, and by the way, I mentioned this before, you can challenge me whenever Discord's open. More than welcome to. Vergil didn't kill Nero, so therefore that's change, right? Well, it's not much of a stretch to assume he didn't want to do it in front of Dante, because he'd most likely stop him with Nero's power combined. They would have stopped him easily, no questions about it. Another assumption we can make is Arkham would have gotten away with it, versus he thought Nero wouldn't, but the first one is more likely. Vergil's not a murderer. Yes, all the other stuff he did in DMC3 is excused, and we don't know if that's true, because in his human form he might feel bad for it, but when he's back into Vergil, he doesn't seem to actually try and reverse the damage until he's beaten, then understands, sort of, kind of later. Also, V is known for manipulating people, so he might have just done this to use Trish. Vergil embraces his human side because, just like Dante, he knows that that's true power. Sounds like he only made this choice just for more power, or just to be as powerful as Dante, not for any regretful reason or any growth in character. Finally, Nero.
What am I doing wasting my time here? He's got this.
Nero, bad to good. Nero in DMC4. Nero in DMC4 is nothing more than the introduction to the character. I don't think that that's an unpopular opinion, mostly because Nero doesn't change at the end of the story. He starts off as a punk and rebellious kid with no girl, and at the end he's a punk and rebellious kid with a girl and with a DT now. Very different. Which, the more that I describe it, it actually kind of sounds like a 90s to 80s high school drama. Nero just wants to get with the girl that he likes, which happens to be his sister. Incest. But whoa, there seems to be a demon problem. Looks like he's gonna have to fucking murder them all. Okay, I'll stop. Back on track. Point is, DMC4 didn't evolve or change Nero in any way. All he did was shout Kyrie a lot, which was very annoying.
Kyrie! I swear I'm gonna get us out of here! Together, Kyrie!
If you could squint at the screen a lot, and maybe you can try and say that Nero was shy to do it with Kyrie, but in the end he learns confidence or something like that. But that wouldn't make any sense because the way he taunts demons easily and talks to other people easily, and even if you say, oh, that's because it was Kyrie, then others can be construed as Nero being afraid of her learning about his demon hand thing, which doesn't make any sense either way, because why would Nero be afraid of his sister? Ugh. Anyway, just move on to the part where I talk about Nero and DMC5. Okay, this one's a bit hard to start, so I'll describe with what happens in the story for Nero, then I'll explain why it's good. The intro starts with Nero failing to take down Urizen and getting called dead weight by Dante, who saves him. Nearly right after this, but chronologically first, has his arm taken from him, which up to that point was his main source of power. After some trialing and some tribulations, he goes for round 2 with Urizen, beating him up in the first stage, showing that yet again he's learned and improved, but failing in stage 2. Yet again being saved by Dante, just like last time. After the story forgets about him for a little while, he seems to head back with the others. Dante tells him that he should sit and wait out, but of course Nero's not having it and goes anyway. After a few fights with a group, somehow the group separates, even though the floor was clearly stable, and somehow it fell apart, and they fell in completely different places, even though they were in the same area. Ugh. Whatever. After saving V, he tells him that Urizen and Dante's older brother, which BTW, the chicken lady, flat out tells him that Nero is a relative of Sparta, which he knows is connected to Dante, because back in DMC4 he was clearly connected to it, and they mention it multiple times. I give up. Then you know the rest. Vergil and Dante try and fight for their last time, only to be stopped by Nero. Then he defeats Vergil, and then gains his arm back. Okay, first up, his arm. The Nero journey. Losing his arm is the first event that happens to Nero, and it makes sense that it's the second to last scene of him getting his arm back. Not only is it nice for gameplay, but story as well. It shows only after doing what he has done, which is after accepting that he has a family and must try and save it because of what happens at Credo, because he doesn't want to lose anyone, not if he can help it. Why the Bringer is different this time around. Instead of it being bulky for smashing stuff and it being powered by the Yamato, now it's light to the point where he doesn't even need to connect it to an actual arm. He can smash things when need be, and the power only comes from Nero himself. Yeah, it's not completely different, but it symbolizes his change. Now for Deadweight. As much as people meme it to high hell, it's a good representation of Nero's story. It feels as he's been thrown away and thrown to the side. You know, he feels as lesser to everybody else around him. Why beating all the demons is important to him. He's slowly building his confidence and his strength. Why at the end, Nero calling Dante Deadweight after Dante saving him and calling him that very same thing feels so satisfying and actually well planned out. Hell, if you don't believe that Nero's finally a good character with a good character arc, then take it from my 5 things I love, hate, and think is funny in DMC5 video, where I said it was good, and I'm supposed to be the toxic hater boy of the DMC community. Besides, everyone's done what I just did much better. Although there is one thing that bothers me about what's perceived in the Nero's arc. It's the whole family thing. People try and say that Nero's intervening between Vergil and Dante was because of the whole family thing, but this argument has very little weight, mostly because Dante and Vergil are fighting over which half of them should be number one, demon for the sake of power, and human for the sake of compassion, only when it's for money, and Nero for not killing each other. So no, Nero's story isn't about saving my family, but about not killing each other over other differences that don't matter and only damage themselves and others in the crossfire. Like Nero. Hey, I brought it full circle. Let's move on to my favorite arc, to my favorite boom.
How many times have we fought? Hard to say. It's the only memory I have of it since we were kids.
For a while, I was wondering if Dante was going to do anything. I guess the story is trying to put focus on Dante losing, but let's be honest, we've seen that before, like a lot. Example, him not killing the Pope first time, and technically second in DMC 4. In DMC 1, he got somebody killed, and then brought them back to life using love. What the fuck is DMC? What the fuck is DMC 1 anymore? DMC 2 was a game, and that was the whole point of DMC 3, was Dante suffering, or family, or something like that. Well, correction, it's about failure, only when the plot needs him to, but otherwise he can do everything and anything in a stylish... Wait a second. Dante's a Gary Sue. So at the end of the day, whether you agree that the fact that Dante struggles or not doesn't seem to be what the narrative is building up, because it's been done before. A normal day for Dante. In DMC 3, every mission, every boss, every struggle means something. Well, most of it, anyway. But this was all due to Dante's growth, as his power, and as the game goes on. This was because it reflected Dante's arc, and the story becoming more responsible, more powerful, and something family. Point being, everything you acquired felt necessary and integral to the experience. Hence, one of the many reasons that DMC 3 is the best game in the series. My point is, Dante from DMC 5 doesn't have this. You can try and argue the point that it's Dante returning to glory, reclaiming things he once had, but if that's so, why does he have Balrog and shotgun and only reclaims like 2-ish kind of his old weapons that seem to return? But anyways, they're also very different. So are we back to DMC4 levels of Dante-ness? Not quite. Near the end of it, it actually feels like Dante's doing something in the story, with Vergil, and so on. In fact, that would probably explain why the middle of the story till Vergil stuff is so boring. Anyway, Dante. As soon as we were back to Dante actually doing something, he just does the same thing Dante does. Brother bad, me kill, but by this time we get to that, it's the ending, so not really the end for Dante. I've already talked about this in my DMC3 and DMC5. Vergil are basically the same section. Wow, that's a handful. So I'll try and be as brief as possible while throwing a few new things. There's no setup or some sort of problem or issue of Dante's character that has some type of arc or change. Again, the only change in Dante's character that people seem to mention is that Dante and Vergil don't try and kill each other at the end. But where's the proof of this? At the end of the day, they still seem to be fighting amongst themselves, probably trying to kill each other. Because Dante knows if he lets him get away, he'll probably do the same shit he did back in DMC3 and DMC5. And Vergil doesn't want Dante to get in his way. That's probably why they're still fighting. Notice how I said probably. Mostly because we don't know for sure either way, which is what pisses me off the most. If the next game has Dante and Vergil still fighting, then at the end they're fighting. And if they worked out their issues in the next game, then they worked their issues in the ending. At the end of the day, it could really go either way. Although them not working out their issues is more likely because nostalgia makes money in games. But God, I hope I'm wrong. So, what have we learned today? A good character has a proper conflict and a proper motivation from the start, not suddenly at the end to justify their presence. Okay, one bit at a time. V isn't the worst character I've seen. Trust me, mate. I've seen some shit. But really, why would you overcomplicate the story and plot for sake of only making it harder for yourself, but for a cheap plot twist nonetheless, that people saw coming from a mile away already? Just keep Vergil. Not only would you get a playable Vergil from Jumpstart over a shittier playable character, but we can develop the character throughout the story, not just at the end. And even if you do agree that the development of Vergil was justified, do you think the time spent with Nero could have been better made with Vergil? And let their dialogue be about their father and son relationship or much more than, who am I? Ooh. It's just terribly done, and it could have been easily avoided by just having them be regular Vergil, or Vergil surviving from Nero, rather than splitting himself in half, which really has no reason. And the worst part is that splitting Vergil in half isn't a bad idea. It's just the execution is awful. Dante. Yeah, he's there. He does stuff and things in plot, more or less. Okay, look, Dante in DMC5 is much better than DMC4 Dante, but being more than a plot device isn't much of an accomplishment. And again, if you don't believe me, there's a good reason why the middle to near end of the story is so boring, or nearly as interesting as the first half. Because Dante's story isn't nearly as suspenseful as Nero's story. Let me explain in the most objective way I can. Nero has his arm ripped off and wants revenge for it, has lost a lot of power because of losing his arm, dead weight, and him feeling lost after his family something. Can he beat Urizen? All these are running in his story, while Dante has beat Urizen and kill brother running through his story. And he's not even in his fun-loving mood this whole time. Again, yeah, he does haha silly dance, but other than that, he's relatively grounded, which I don't mind, but I rather have some character arcs or character growths or something running through his story to go along with it. Overall, Dante's pretty meh in this story, which is a shame. Nero's great at the end of the story. I've talked about it enough. I mean, I do have one-ish problem, but I'll get to that in a sec. Nero! I think the one problem I have with Nero isn't Nero himself, but rather the lack of him in the later half. Suddenly a good character / good journey is suddenly put for another one that's a worse one at that, and maybe a few more moments of Nero explaining what he thinks of power and or how to use it, but most of this is the plot's fault, which is a video for a different time. Overall, a well-made character with a pretty good journey. Done. Okay, so number one, I do want to address a few things before I move on. Nero section, as much as I tried to tackle it the best way I could, a lot of people have already talked about it already, and it's been talked about it to death. So, you know, anything good really in that's DMC5 related, anything even remotely decent gets like talked about it to high heaven, versus all the bad stuff gets like scrubbed under the rug. So you don't hear very much from Dante or V's story or some shit like that. Sorry, by the way, the script was a bit all over the place. I don't know until I'll finally release this video, until I see overall with like the whole God eye and my third eye opens and shit, to see how this all works out in the end. But hopefully this will work out more and better for like longer scripts and stuff like that. I'm just worried because I do want to do longer scripts like these, but I just don't know if they will turn out good or bad or etc. And pretty much that's it. Well, I do want to do maybe a few more story things for DMC5, but to be honest, I'm getting tired of talking about DMC. I'm really sick of it. Every time I make a video on it, I'm just like, ugh. It's not that I hate DMC at all. I don't. I clearly have a love for this franchise, and I see that it can go in so many different directions and can be so much better. But sadly, sadly, it doesn't go in the directions the way that a lot of people wish it to be. But mostly this channel will mostly just talk about like some reboot stuff probably. I just want to maybe make 1 or 2 videos at the most just talking about DMC5 and then scrub it under the rug. I'm so tired of talking about DMC. It's barely even a game that I play anymore. I only go back for like footage and stuff like that, or maybe the occasional pickup. But most of the stuff I want to try other things, and I feel like I'm being restricted to that. Not because of you guys and not because of this channel, but it's because that I've bound myself. But other than that, thank you for watching. If you enjoy this content, subscribe to the other channel. Oh, I was joking. Subscribe to this channel, I guess. I don't know what I'm going to be doing anymore, especially after this video. Man, I've been looking so far into the present that I haven't looked at the future or even thought about the future of my channel, which is crazy because I usually think about the future of my channel all the time, and it's when I stress up. I wake up, I have nightmares, I have the shakes, man. So I hope you enjoy it. I know, hopefully I enjoyed it. Depends how this all works out in the end. And thank you for watching. Jesus Christ, there's an hour of raw footage. I hope it's not an hour long. It's not an hour. I hope. Oh, I hope. Anyway, but also this sets up a nice little ground. I'll let you in on a secret. There's a lot of people that have made really, really bad Devil May Cry analysis videos, especially when it comes to the story, which is why I want to talk about it here. I've already laid the foundation. That way when I talk to other people, or not talk to other people, but when I call out other people, it'll make sense in the end. Anyway, that's even if I get to that point. Anyway, enjoy yourself, blah, 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 subscribe. I don't care. Hold on. Give me a minute. We need to bring down the government, secure the rights for minorities, and open the borders. Thank you. I've been your host, Splinter, and good night.